Nation, welcome back, Separation Nation. It's exciting to be back. We took a couple weeks off for the holidays, and when I say holidays, those summer holidays that come around. And Justin and I spent a little time at the beach, not a whole lot, but enough to get almost a suntan. And so, anyway, back in the saddle, we got some good stuff out there. What our last podcast we did with Mr. Rush from where was he from? New Mexico.
He can claim both. He's from both sides. He lives right on the line. So anyway, 1 foot in each state.
Texas, but real good on stress. I think we're gonna need to do a part 2 on that because I've been even more stressed out since we got through with that. So I need some help again. But to talk about that, if you're tuning in for the first time, please subscribe to the channel. You can find us anywhere where you can. Mainly on our YouTube page, but anywhere podcasts are available, we are available. So we'll jump right into it. And something that, we've talked about, you've heard a statement, Justin said this statement many times on the podcast. And I was, kind of thinking about this week, we say these things over and over and over, but we never actually just, a lot of times, pinpoint on what we mean by what we say. So I wanted to do this, but there's a statement you've said before. I heard you say it before anybody else say it, but now I've heard several people say it, and that's be more, do more, and have more. And I think that pretty much anybody you would talk to would tell you, and not everybody, but most people, especially people that's listening to this podcast are trying to better themselves, they say, I want to have more. I want to have more in life. I want to have more material wealth. I want to have more possessions, and all that's fine and good. I believe to be just as ambitious as you can and to go after it. And we were put here on this earth, the first commandment God ever gave was to be fruitful and multiply. And so, but sometimes you kind of got to reverse engineer that thing. Have more is great. You got to do more to have more. And I agree with that. We all can do more in certain areas, but there's a root to all of that I feel like is the missing element in the whole deal, and that's be more. And that's what this podcast is about. You hear us talking about the white buffalo. You hear us talk about Separation Nation. You hear us talk about the separators. What's the key separator? And I believe probably the very most important, and you can say if you agree with this or not, Justin, but the very most important element in our life, the most important thing that we can do to separate ourselves from the pack, to not necessarily be like everybody else, but to excel in life, to excel in business, to excel in everything that we do. I think the most important thing we can do is learn how to be more. And that comes from, it starts with self-reflection. It starts with self-discovery. It starts with looking in the mirror. It starts looking at ourselves, taking a daily analysis of who we are, where we are in life, and taking steps to where we work on ourselves. Because we know we need to work on our business. Most people spend years and years working into business and just a little bit of time working on the business. That's a mistake too. You got to work on the business just as much as you work into business. But more importantly than any of those things is working on yourself. Because if we can work on ourselves and we can become more and we can be more, the business there'll be a chain reaction, and the businesses that you start and run will benefit from that. The relationships that you're involved in will benefit from that. So let's talk a lot about being more today.
Well, it's the be to do to have is another way to say that, in this way that I often reference it. But, to reiterate what John said, if you want to have more, you got to do more. If you want to do more, you have to be more. You can't have one without the other. Everybody wants the have part, okay? The have part's the easy part. You can point and say, I'd like to have this guy's life, or I'd like to have, this person's home, or I'd like to be able to drive and dress the way this person does, or, I'd like to have the body so-and-so has. Well, we can sit all day and name off, the things we'd like to have, but where the nut cutting comes in, okay, to use a Southern expression, where it gets tough is when you have to put in the work. But even tougher than the work part is the becoming. Again, be, to do, to have. If you want to have more, you've got to do more. But the only way you're going to be able to physically sustain and mentally sustain doing more is becoming more. Jim Rohn said that formal education will make you a living, but self education will make you a fortune. And the top peak performers, top producers, the top 1%, the 4% that earn over 97% of all the income in this country, 3% that owns over 97% of all this income in the country. That's some of your most personally development driven people. I mean, they're obsessed with it, and to the point that they're always reading, they're always listening. I've talked about on the podcast before, I'm a musician, and I've been a student of music, was a professional musician for a few years at the beginning of my career life, or age that I could actually go out and begin to work full time. And so I'm a person, as much as I love music and as much as I've studied music and been obsessed with, records and bands and albums. And, I've just grown to a point in life that I really don't even, not that I'm still not interested, not that still I don't pick up a pair of drumsticks, at least maybe once a week, but used to, where I would be working out or I'd be in my vehicle driving and I'd listen to music. I got into a habit years ago of listening to audiobooks, and then when podcasts become a thing, listening to podcasts to the point that I almost feel guilty. I almost feel like it's a waste of my time. When I'm sitting there putting music in, something that, while it may help me relax or what have you, in certain scenarios, if I'm sitting on the beach on vacation, I may listen to some music. But any other time, day to day, day in and day out, I'm taking any of that time that I've got, that my ears are free and they don't have to be plugged into something else, handling business. I'm making sure to replenish and refill my own well and continue to grow. It's been said that your bank account will never outgrow your financial vocabulary. If you want your bank account to get bigger, you need to increase your financial vocabulary. You need to understand what you're talking about. And so, it's real basic, but it all begins with becoming more. And that's where most people check out, because they're not willing to put in the time and effort to work on themselves at a core level. And it takes that, but again, to work on yourself, you have to have discipline. You have to have those habits, rituals, and routines. You have to get in a mode that you're making the first step, which is to even be disciplined enough to work on your personal development, because without that foundational base, you're not going to be able to have the discipline and the mental strength that it takes to sustain the level of work that you're going to have to put in to be able to have those lofty aspirations that you wish to have.
Well, I think the key, what you just said, with music, I mean, you and I mean, that's pretty much how we met, and is playing music together and different things like that. But I'm the same way. People say, have you heard this song or that song? I couldn't tell you what's current right now when it comes to music. Um, it's very seldom, unless my kids. I took my son to CrossFit this morning, and he wanted to hear. He tells me what songs he wants to hear. I had to make sure I got the clean version. I don't know where he hears this mess from, but anyway, that's another story. But so that's when I listen to music. When my son turns me on to something, and I'll have, we had about a 20-minute ride, and I listened to some songs and different things and had fun. We had the Jeep. I got a nice little sound system in the Jeep. It's a lot of fun, but I'm like you. I mean, it's podcast, it's programs. I've been through, this coach, that coach, different programs. I'm always got something I'm feeding myself with. Because the fact of the matter is, and I said it a while ago, and I want to say this again and say it in a little bit different way. Most people that are in business, in whatever type of their business, will spend most of their time working in that business. And what I mean by that is just they're task oriented. And this, from point A to point B to point C to point D. But the businesses that succeed and the people that succeed in business and not just survive in business, and we all want to succeed rather than survive, are people that learn you can't just work into business, but you got to work on the business. You got to always try to make that business better. But unless you're willing to work on, not just work on the business, but work on the businessman or work on the business woman, unless you're willing to work on yourself, you're never going to achieve the things that you need to achieve. And one way that I've done that is by just daily through self-discovery and self-reflection and just taking an inventory. And when I say daily, I try to daily, but at least on a weekly basis to sit down and to look at two things. My current, and when I say current, where I am today, because this is the key. You're never going to get where you want to be in life and business unless you can be honest with where you are today. So we talk about working out. Aaron, our producer of the show, we worked out together for years, still do from time to time. I've worked out together before. But, Aaron and I talked about this, people that, because I've done CrossFit some, and but people that they work out for 3 or 4, and I'm not picking on anybody. So if you're just starting your fitness journey, more power to you. I'll help you in any way I can. But if the people that walk around flexing their shirt off, they work out for 3 months, they put on their wife beater in the gym, they got the fanny pack, they got the whole deal, and they really ain't there yet. But in their mind, they've convinced themselves that they are there. And, I have to, and maybe I'm just a sick, twisted individual, but I have to psych myself out. If I'm trying to lose weight, I have to be honest. I have to look in the mirror and I have to say, I can't say, well, I look pretty good, or I look better than this person, or I look better than that person, or I look better than 60% of the people in the gym. No, I look at myself and I say, you're turning into a fat bastard. You got to do something about it. I have to do that, and that's a little cruel, but that's the only way I can motivate myself to get there. But I think it's just telling the truth and being honest. But there's certain areas that I suck at. There's certain areas that we all suck at. And if we can be honest through self-discovery and say, look, I need to improve in that. It doesn't do me any good to say I'm there if I'm not there. It doesn't do me any good to say I've got great management skills if I really don't. To say I'm a great communicator, if people are always misunderstanding the things I say or getting things wrong, maybe my communication skills need to be, sharpened some. So I do that. I try to, I can tell you my weaknesses. I might not want you to tell me my weaknesses, but I can tell you my weaknesses, and I can be honest with myself to the point that I can say, okay, I suck at this or I suck at that. And those skill sets that I know I need to improve, daily I try to sharpen those. Daily I try to do something. I look at myself, and I'll give you an analogy in that. If you want to go to Chicago, Illinois, get in your car, drive to Chicago. Well, the first thing you're going to have to do if you get a map, people don't remember maps. Let's just go with the GPS. The GPS, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to pinpoint, okay, you want to go to Chicago? Well, where are you leaving from? Are you leaving from your position that you're currently at? Or are you leaving from Atlanta, Georgia? Or are you leaving from here? But where are you right now? We can't determine where we're going to go until we determine where we are right now. Give you another example. If you go to a mall and you get lost, we like to go to St. John's Town Center from time to time in Jacksonville. My wife calls me. She said, here, meet me down at so-and-so store. And I say, okay, I'll be there in a minute. Well, if I find the mall directory, the first thing I'm looking for is not the store she's at. The first thing I'm looking for is the little sign that says, you are here. And that's life, that's business, everything. People do not want to be honest with the fact that this is where you're at. This is where you are. Find where you are. Don't make believe. Don't pretend. Don't lie and say you're further along than you actually are, but admit that you have these particular weaknesses. This is where I am in life. This is where I am in business. This is where I am in my marriage. This is where I am in my fitness. I'm going to be honest with myself, and I'm going to say, look, this is where I'm at. These are the areas that I need to work on, whether it's communication skills, whether it's management skills, whether it's accounting skills, whether it's legal things that you got to know, and be specific. It's like you talked about, listening to podcasts is great. Listening to audiobooks. I've got a library of audiobooks in this phone that, it would take you 2 years to get through, because I'm the same way with you. I know who I can listen to while I'm working out that's going to motivate me a little bit, plus educate me some as well. I know who I can't listen to while I'm working out, but I can pretty much do any kind of workout listening to some kind of podcast or audiobook. Might not be the same one I listen to before I go to bed. But here's a step further that I take it. I know you take it there, and listeners, you could take it here too. Listen, don't just fill yourself with stuff. Don't just fill yourself with audiobooks. Don't just fill yourself with podcasts. But be specific. Find things that speak to you where you are. If you're struggling with communication skills, find stuff on communication. Listen, if you're struggling in relationships, find things on relationships. But be specific. 2 things that we have to improve every day: our mindsets and our skill sets. Find things that specifically address the skill sets that you need to improve on a day-to-day basis. And here's the thing: you may be weak in those areas because you don't like working on those areas. That might be the hardest areas for you to work on, but listen, that's what needs to be worked on. So find those things, get specific with your growth, get specific with the things that you feed yourself to get you to that next level. And your mindsets, think about things. What are the things your parents taught you that are wrong? 90% of us, 90% of the people listening to this podcast, you've got stinking thinking that your parents taught you about relationships, about business, about money. God bless our parents. We love them. They love us. They're just doing their best. But they may not necessarily have told us the best things for us. We may be in a whole totally different area of life. We may be way further along than they were when they give us that advice. And the fact of the matter is, I can go back to my daddy and say, hey, you told me this when I was 13 years old. And it's kind of like, Reese and Ricky Bobby. Well, what would Reese say? Well, damn, Bobby, I was high when I said that. Daddy wasn't high, but he probably wouldn't tell me that again. He probably wouldn't say, son, I've lived 25, 30 more years since then. I don't think the same way. Why are you still thinking the way I thought 30 years ago? So we got to adjust these mindsets and skill sets, but we got to take inventory day to day on those mindsets and skill sets and work on that and work on us to be more. Because when we are more, when we become more, then not only can we do more, but and when we say do more, we don't just mean increase our action or to take more steps or to sleep less and work more, but the power behind what we do becomes elevated. The power behind what we do is so much better. And we can actually do less physically, do less task-wise, but have even more of an outcome. And I may not have been explaining that perfectly, but our do becomes more just by our being becoming more.
Yeah, well, I found that underachievers are overachievers at excuses.
Absolutely.
And so you can have excuses. You've heard us say this before. You have excuses or results, but you'll never have both. And so, the key thing, what you said earlier, was being honest with yourself. And that's just a lot of people here's my corny joke for today, but denial is not just a river in Egypt. So, you got people live their entire life in denial where they actually are because they make excuses for themselves. At the end of the day, there is no excuse that will suffice. If it will be, it's up to me. It all boils down to you. Somebody's taking the same situation right now that you're complaining about, and they've won with it. The same situation, exact same thing. What's the difference? The difference is the person. It's the size of the person. It's the size that they have grown to. It's their capacity to receive. It's their capacity to be able to deal with hardship and adversity. It's their capacity. They've grown into that person, and growing's not comfortable. It's not easy. It's painful. It's painful to grow. It's easy to stay the same. It's easy to sit on the couch and eat Cheetos. It's a pain in the ass to get up and go do cardio for 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a difference. And you can take that and you can apply it to any area of life that you want to apply it to. But your income, if we go back to the have, because that's what everybody wants, right? Everybody wants a shiny car. Everybody wants a Rolex, or whatever your thing is. Everybody wants a bass boat. Everybody wants the newest shit, over and under shotgun to go quail hunting with. Okay, I'm hitting all our sportsman
It's
sector
side by
that might
side
listen.
now.
Oh,
Everybody's shooting side by sides
I
again.
ain't
It's
shooting
done
no
rolled.
side-by-side.
It's done rolled back around. Last time I went quail hunting. Two guys side by sides. I don't know. I'm gonna keep the over and
So
under.
people say a lot of times, well, I mean, we ain't into that fancy stuff. Well, listen, Hoss, your bass boat that you went out there and financed, probably cost more than my watch I got on.
It's
So I mean,
fancy.
everybody's got their own thing that they go blow money on. That they need to make them feel happy.
That
Okay,
Ranger.
yeah. So whatever your thing is, but you got to understand this: your income's going to seldom exceed your personal development, and it may from time to time. Here's the deal: your income can take a lucky jump on you. It's just life. Sometimes luck's going to hit you. It might take a lucky jump, but if you don't grow to where it is, it will go back to where you are. And so, there is no getting out of this thing without growing. And I mean, I don't know how many times I've seen this one, but your gifting will take you where your character won't sustain you. And so, a lot of people can be gifted. I mean, John and I have seen gifted sales professionals come in and out of our organization over the years, and they might be gifted with the gift of gab. Okay, but there's they got a bulldog mouth, but they got a chihuahua ass. There's no meat back there to back up what they do, and so it's important to recognize that. I mean, you're not getting off. Education never ends in life, because even if you don't choose to self-educate yourself, I've looked at my sons even this week, and I said, "What's my favorite quote for y'all? What is it?" And one of them looked at me and said, "If you're hard on yourself, life will become infinitely easier on you." I said, "You damn straight." Because life's hard. It's going to be hard on you. But if you're hard on yourself, it becomes a lot easier on you. If you're intentional about yourself, about your self-development, about being better, getting up every day and growing into the person that God created you to be, then life tends to get a lot easier on you. But you're not getting out of this thing without growth, even if or without pain. Let me put it that way, because you're gonna have the pain in growing. And listen, the pain in growing gets a little easier. It gets easier to deal with. The more you work out, you can deal with the soreness a little better. You don't get quite as sore as you did in the beginning. You can actually sit down on the toilet every day and not feel like you're about to die after a squat day. I mean, just for you fitness people to understand that one.
Not fall on the toilet.
Yeah, not fall down on it. But but it gets easier. But let me tell you what don't get easier is life kicking your ass over and over and over again because you won't get your ass off the couch, or you won't grow, or you won't do the thing. You're gonna suffer either way. So you can either suffer and be broke, and suffer and have horrible relationships because you're unwilling to work on your selfishness or the things in you that keep leading you from one relationship to the next relationship to the next relationship. Listen, you can only go through so many breakups, so many divorces, so many jobs, and at a certain point you have to stop and say, what is the common denominator in all this bullshit I'm going through in life? I mean, if you've been married 10 times and been through 10 divorces, maybe it's time to consider it wasn't just the other 10 assholes. It was probably you. Okay. And that's where most people don't want to get real with themselves in life and understand that you're going to get your head beat in either way. You might as well grow into the person, which takes me back to the quote that I say all the time. Being broke's hard, getting rich is hard, choose your hard. You just got to decide it's all going to be hard either way. And you got to make a decision to fight through those hard times and keep going. But I mean, you could take and divide all the money in the world. All right. Again, we're talking about have right now. 'Cause that's what everybody wants. Everybody wants the thick wallet and the bass boat and the Rolex and the, Louis Vuitton shoes, whatever your deal is. And, or the trip, whatever. I mean, just take it and apply it. Okay. And because I've seen, and this is a side note, all right, I'm in a little bit of a mess and gammon mood. Quote my Mima, I'm going to mess and gum here a minute. But some of the same people that I've had before that have wrote about, just for example, let's talk about me. Have wrote about me on the internet or said something about me, about, for example, a particular brand of luxury shoes I wear. What I want to say, but then if you spend that money on shoes, somehow that's different than them spending twice that much on lavish vacation to take their whole family somewhere. I mean, it's what you choose to spend your funds on. But all that being said, you could divide all the money in the world up completely equal. I know you probably heard this before, but it's going to end up finding its way back into the same pockets that had it to begin with. Because the person that has it because they have the be to do to have down. They became the person that enabled them to put in the work they need to put in. They have the capacity to sustain that financial growth. If you got people with great relationships, they had to grow into a person to have the capacity to sustain those wonderful relationships. And so if you got a person with a great body, they had to grow into the person that has the capacity to sustain those things, not just get there. I mean, it's fairly easy. I've done it before in life. It's been a number of years, but it's fairly easy to cut down where you got some abs showing through. What's hard as hell is staying there, okay, consistently. It can be fairly easy to go out and make a large chunk of money. What's hard is to get out there and be able to do that consistently every week, day in, day out, and to use it and build an empire with it. So, that's why you see a lot of people that blow up overnight. It look like an overnight sensation, but then you look around a year later and you can't find them. It's church mice, okay? And that's the reason, because they didn't grow into a position where their character would continue to sustain them. So just, you can't get out of this thing without the growth aspect, period.
Well, everybody you're talking, those type of people that you're talking about, those are the people that concentrated on the have. If you just concentrate on the have, you may get there, but you're not going to stay there. And the wisdom behind it, and the wise thing to do, concentrate on the be, concentrate on the do as a result of the be, and the have's going to come. You cannot grow as a person, as a business professional, as an entrepreneur. You cannot be specific daily to increase, to expand your mindsets and expand your skill sets in the area that need to be expanded. It's impossible, absolutely 100% impossible, to be more and to do more and to have more, not just come as a result of that. And when you do this, what happens is, and it's, I'll use the Zig Ziglar quote that you use a lot, the difference in a wandering generality and a meaningful specific. The difference is 90% of the world are wandering generalities that live life by default. Just whatever happens, happens. They spend their entire life trying to have more, but they live life by default, wandering around, never being specific. But as we become meaningful specifics and we begin to work on ourselves, begin to become more so we can do more and to have more, just absolutely happens. We go from living life by default. Now we live life by design. We actually begin to design the world that we live in. Listen, if you don't like the world you live in, create a new one. You created the world you live in. God didn't create it. Your family didn't create it. It didn't just happen. If you're living by default, guess what? You still created it. Begin to design the life that you want by becoming more, and it'll all work out.
And the more, I'll say this about the more, this I like these kind of things if you've watched the show any amount of time. But for me, the more, because we got more. Be more, do more, have more. Okay? Same word popping up 3 times. Here's how you get more in life. I say more stands for motivating others to reach excellence. Motivating others to reach excellence. How you get more and sustain more is not by worrying about your 4 and no more. It's about understanding that the more comes and is sustained, which ties us back into our company philosophy. You can have everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want. It comes into consistency and the ability to continue to pour into people and to bring people with you. That's when you become significant. Success is when you and your family is doing good. Significance is when you inspire others, and without even having to, you just live in your life. People start running to your cause, your company, your business, whatever it is you got going on. Say, man, I want to be a part of that. I want to live this life. I want to be, do, and have more. And that's how it happens. It's because you're motivating others to reach that excellence that you've exemplified in your own life. So be more, do more, have more, but understand that it's got to be bigger than you. It's got to be about the others around you and taking them with you. And here's the hard part. Continuing to take them with you, okay, and not being cynical and this is, we all got to preach to ourselves sometimes, but not being cynical and not being overrun with cynicism, because you got to understand that everybody that starts with you will not finish with you. And so you have to be willing to continue to move, because, people mess up in life. They blow it, they change, they go through difficulty, they go through different hard times, and affects things. And so you have to be able to be positive in a negative world, and to continue staying on your same mission, understanding this is going to reap a harvest in your life if you'll just continue to be good and help people and pour into people, and not become cynical for the ones that maybe everything don't work out right with along the way. Then that's going to guarantee that you have sustained success moving into your future. So that's kind of what we wanted to talk about in this episode today. We hope it's brought some value to you. And, listen, guys, a lot of negativity going on in the world. World's crazy, okay? That's all we're going to say about that. Watch less news, love people more, stay positive, and we'll see you next time right here on Separation Nation.